Hello YouTube, I am Nathan Martin with the Divine Pollination Hive and the UnityProcess.com, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing the Mandela Effect and do we live in a simulation. This video has to do with simulation reality and whether or not we are living on a server. It was brought up as a possibility by the so-called Mandela Effect whistleblower, so we're going to try to understand what simulation theory really is and whether or not we actually live in a simulation. If this is something that interests you, stay tuned. In my Mandela Effect whistleblower video, we have this scientist who discussed the possibility that we live in a simulation. And I'm just going to briefly rehash those posts. So on August 21st, 2016, he said, "I'm sorry, but that is impossible. I'm not even sure where I am from. We are all clones. We work approximately 5 hours per day on the server, and then we get a few hours of socialization. Believe it or not, we are jealous and wished we could be there with you." It sounds like a noble cause, yes, but unfortunately, if we do not fix the anomalies, there is a possibility of a server crash that would eliminate this existence for all of us, including myself, and the next layer outside of ourselves. So that's 3 layers of existence would be wiped out from a server crash. There is one finite reality on one overworked and overstressed server, and we are the ones who fix the code that is currently unraveling and could potentially cause a system crash, all due to one person. And if you'd like to know more about this, I did a video called Are You the One? CERN is using the collider to introduce anomalies into the server by networking it with multiple D-Wave 4096 machines. The only thing they have accomplished so far is minor anomalies. We have rewritten the entire skeletal structure, the rib cage, the skull, the brain. Your consciousness was transferred to the server to avoid an extinction level event. You may have noticed updates to your body as well as environment. I don't have much longer. I must leave now. Jeremy Bernstein, good luck. I don't think he's not calling himself Jeremy Bernstein. He's saying find Jeremy Bernstein, or he's a clone of Jeremy Bernstein. But anyways, you see that there is a server involved in all this, and that he is stating that we live in a server. Just before this guy released his whistleblowing thing on the Mandela Effect, Elon Musk on 9th of August said, "We'll try out No Man's Sky this weekend. Maybe reality is just a series of nested simulations all the way down." And then he leaves a link to the Wikipedia page for Turtles All the Way Down. This is from Wikipedia. Turtles All the Way Down is a jocular expression of the infinite regress problem in cosmology posed by the unmoved mover paradox. The metaphor in an anecdote represents a popular notion of the theory that the Earth is actually flat and is supported on the back of a world turtle, which itself is propped up by a chain of larger and larger turtles. Questioning what the final turtle might be standing on, the anecdote humorously concludes that it's turtles all the way down. The expression is an illustration of the concept of anavasta in Indian philosophy, and refers to the defect of infinite regress in any philosophical argument. Contrary to most extant Western references, it is not a popular Hindu belief. Rather, it is a widely accepted principle in Indian philosophy, commonly used to reject arguments for a creator god or unmoved mover. This guy says again, in another of the posts, "We use a quantum computer based on our own neural network. Unfortunately, some of that technology was passed down to us to be used for a very specific purpose. Imagine Russian dolls, and you have a pretty good idea of the true nature of our reality. We are manipulating, yet also being manipulated from outside." So if you look at the nesting dolls and then the turtles all the way down, it is very similar, except for it's not all the way down in this case. We might be the last reality, unless of course transhumanism comes along, at which point then there is going to be another nested reality within this one. In the initial tweet by Elon Musk, he talked about procedural generation and No Man's Sky. In computing, procedural generation is a method of creating data algorithmically as opposed to manually. In computer graphics, it is called random generation and is commonly used to create textures and 3D models. In video games, it is used to automatically create large amounts of content in a game. Advantage of procedural generation includes smaller file sizes, larger amounts of content, and randomness for less predictable gameplay. The term procedural refers to the process that computes a particular function. Fractals, an example of procedural generation, express this concept, around which a whole body of mathematics, fractal geometry, has been developed. Commonplace procedural content includes textures and meshes. While software developers have applied procedural generation techniques for years, few products have employed this approach extensively. Procedurally generated elements have appeared in earlier video games. The Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall takes place in a mostly procedurally generated world, giving a world roughly twice the actual size of the British Isles. No Man's Sky, a game developed by game studio Hello Games, is all based upon procedurally generated elements. So simulation theory. What is simulation theory? Simulation hypothesis contends that reality is in fact a simulation, most likely a computer simulation, of which we, the simulants, are totally unaware. Some versions rely on the development of simulated reality, a fictional technology. The hypothesis has been a central plot device for many science fiction stories and films. There is a long philosophical and scientific history to the underlying thesis that reality is an illusion. This skeptical hypothesis can be dated as far back as Indian philosophy of Maya, or illusion. Wikipedia. So simulated theory was first, now this is simulated reality. Simulated reality is a hypothesis that reality could be simulated, for example by a computer simulation, to a degree indistinguishable from true reality. It could contain conscious minds which may or may not be fully aware that they are living inside a simulation. This is quite different from the current technologically achieved concept of virtual reality. Virtual reality is easily distinguishable from the experience of actuality. Participants are never in doubt about the nature of what they experience. Simulated reality, by contrast, would be hard or impossible to separate from true reality. There has been much debate over this topic, ranging from philosophical discourse to practical applications in computing. Again, this is from Wikipedia. The simulation hypothesis was first published by Hans Moravec. Later, the philosopher Nick Bostrom developed an expanded argument examining the probability of our reality being a simulacrum. A simulacrum, or plural simulacra, I'm butchering this, I'm sorry, from the Latin simulacrum, which means likeness or similarity, is a representation or imitation of a person or thing. So Elon Musk said, odds are we're living in a simulation. This was an article in June 2nd, 2016. There's a 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance we are living in base reality, Elon Musk said tonight on stage at Recode's Code Conference, meaning that one of the most influential and powerful figures in tech thinks that it's overwhelmingly likely we're just characters living inside a simulation. The Verge co-founder Josh Topolsky got halfway through asking Musk if he thought our existence was simulated before the Tesla CEO jumped in to finish his question for him. I've had so many simulation discussions, it's crazy, Musk explained. You've thought about this? Topolsky asked. A lot, Musk replied. It got to the point where every conversation was the AI simulation conversation, and my brother and I agreed that we would ban such conversations if we were ever in a hot tub. His argument, one presumably honed in the soothing waters of many a jacuzzi, goes that the incredibly fast advancement of video game technology indicates we'll be capable of creating a fully lifelike simulation of existence in a short span of time. In 40 years, Musk explained, we've gone from Pong to massively multiplayer online games with millions of simultaneous players, games with photorealistic graphics, and stand now on the cusp of a new wave of virtual and augmented reality experiences. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then games will become indistinguishable from reality, Musk said. Even if that rate of advancement drops by 1,000 from what it is now, let's just imagine it's 10,000 years in the future, which is nothing on the evolutionary scale. Given that we're on the trajectory and that these games are increasingly playable on any device, Musk said, the odds that we are living our lives in base reality, that is, real reality, is 1 in billions. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. If a civilization stops advancing, then that may be due to some calamitous event that erases civilization, Musk said, presenting 2 options. Either we're going to create simulations that are indistinguishable from reality, or civilization will cease to exist. And I believe that Nick Bostrom also brought this up. So base reality is objective reality. It's the reality from which all other realities spring. It's what we would call source consciousness as base reality, and then all realities spring from source consciousness. That is the only true objective reality, and everything else just comes from that. So on September 14th, 2016, we see Bank of America analyst thinks there's a 50% chance we live in the Matrix. And this again has to do with the philosophy of Professor Nick Bostrom. Analysts at Bank of America have reportedly suggested there is a 20 to 50% chance our world is a Matrix-style virtual reality and everything we experience is just a simulation. The report, which was issued to clients, also implies even if our world was an illusion, we would never know about it. Bank of America Merrill Lynch backed up the claims by citing comments from leading philosophers, scientists, and other thinkers. It is conceivable that with advancement in artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and computing power, members of future civilizations could have decided to run a simulation of their ancestors, the report stated. The analyst took inspiration from inventor and SpaceX founder Elon Musk, who believes there is a high probability the world is a part of an artificial intelligence created by a future civilization. Its claims also appeal to the work of philosophy professor from the University of Oxford. In 2003, Professor Nick Bostrom concluded there is a significant possibility we live in a simulation. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson also maintains the likelihood of the universe being a simulation may be very high. Philosophers dating back to the 16th century, notably René Descartes, have suggested we cannot rely on our sense experiences to perceive the world. The Bank of America's report, which was looking at the implications of virtual reality, explained, many scientists, philosophers, and business leaders believe that there is a 20 to 50% probability that humans are already living in a computer-simulated virtual world. Elon Musk said 1 in a billion, so he gave it more than 50%. In April of 2016, researchers gathered at the American Museum of Natural History to debate this notion. The argument is that we are already approaching photorealistic 3D simulations that millions of people can simultaneously participate in. In the 1999 film The Matrix, humans live in a simulated reality created by machines to control the human population. End of article, and this article is linked below. Simulation Theory in Fiction. Time Out of Joint, a novel by Philip K. Dick. He was a Gnostic, by the way. 2. The Matrix Trilogy. Sword Art Online anime cartoon series. Star Ocean Till the End of Time was a Japanese game on the PS1 or 2 apparently. And Westworld, a 1973 movie, and also a 2016 HBO series. In 2022, a virtual reality, massively multiplayer online role-playing game called Sword Art Online is released. With the Nerve Gear, a helmet that stimulates the user's 5 senses via their brain, players can experience and control their in-game characters with their minds. This new VRM MMORPG is a big hit as it was developed by Akiko Kayaba, the man who also invented the Nerve Gear. On November 6th, 10,000 players log into the SAO's mainframe cyberspace for the first time and discover that they are unable to log out. They quickly discover that they must beat the bosses guarding each of the 100 floors of Aincrad, a steel castle which is also the setting of SAO, battle their way through, and reach the last 100th floor of the game if they wish to be free. Those who suffer in-game destruction or remove the Nerve Gear out of game will result in their real-life deaths. One of the players, Kazuto Kirigaya, I butchered that, is one of 1,000 beta testers in the game's previously closed beta. With the advantage of previous VR gaming experience and a drive to protect other beta testers from discrimination, he isolates himself from the greater group and plays the game alone, bearing the mantle of beater or beta tester and cheater. As the players progress through the game, Kirito eventually befriends a young girl named Asuna Yuki, forming a relationship with and later marrying her in-game. After the duo discover their identity of Kayaba's secret ID, Heathcliff and SAO, who was playing as the leader of the guild Asuna joined in, they confront and destroy him, freeing themselves and other players from the game. So if you think of the person who created this game, it would be kind of like the Anunnaki, Anu, Enki, and Lil, one of those, the Sumerian texts. Maybe they were the ones who created this simulation. Star Ocean 3, and this was from a post I found online, plays out like a typical JRPG for about 30 hours. Only real difference is that it's more sci-fi than straight-up fantasy, though there's still plenty of that since you spend much of the early game on a medieval-style planet. Though halfway through the game, it's revealed that scientists have managed to create some sort of dimensional rift, which takes the party and story into a theoretical real world. And we find out that the entire Star Ocean universe is a video game within this real world. The story from then on goes into the real world until the very end when they go back into the game, and you have to stop corporate meddling from shutting down the game and destroying the world that the main characters live in. Anyway, so that's another one. Westworld TV series. The program takes place in fictional Westworld, a technologically advanced, Western-themed amusement park populated completely by synthetic androids dubbed hosts. Westworld caters to a high-paying visitors dubbed newcomers, also known as guests, who can do whatever they wish within the park without a fear of retaliation from the hosts. So you notice that there's two classes of people here. You have the hosts and the guests. The hosts are synthetic, the guests are organic. What is the difference between simulated reality and simulation hypothesis? In simulation hypothesis, the characters within the simulation are all NPCs or non-player characters that are unaware that they are not real. In simulation reality, consciousness has placed itself within the simulation as participants. In both cases, there is a veil that prevents the occupants from realizing they are within a simulation. If you think about the Westworld TV series, you have the hosts, who are the NPCs, and then you have the guests, who are consciousness that is now participating in the simulation. NPCs and non-player characters. NPC is a soulless being with synthetic and/or group consciousness, also called backfill people by Dolores Cannon, organic portals by Tom Montauk, and Pre-Adamic man by the Gnostics. Then you have souled humans, a souled being imbued with source consciousness, also called Adamic man, literally carrying the breath of life. An NPC would have an exoteric and external locus of control. They are mortal beings. When they die, they are done. A souled human would be esoteric and have an internal locus of control, and they are an eternal being. They existed before coming into these bodies. So then you have the two different locuses of control, inside out or outside in. Internal locus of control, you make things happen. I can determine my future. Look what I can do. I make things happen. External locus of control, there is nothing I can do about my future. Why bother? Why does everything happen to me? External locus of control is where things happen to you. Evolutionary course. An NPC has an external unity. They are attempting to expand through consumption and merging with other conscious units. And it ultimately is entropic. It constricts, it dies down. That's the logical end, is entropy. A souled human, they can find an internal unity, and they are expanding of the self through becoming more unique, individualized, and embodied. This reminds me of the television series Stargate Atlantis as well, where you had the replicators, and the replicators were trying to be like their creators, who were, I can't remember the name right off the top of my head, but the replicators wanted to be like, they wanted to be able to evolve, they wanted to ascend, because their masters were able to ascend, and they tried to do this through external means, through a technological means. They wanted to ascend technologically. So they would be like the NPCs. They are a synthetic consciousness. In Gnosis Volume 1, Chapter 21:11, Boris Moraviev writes, in theory, the film in which man is born, in which he lives, can go on until the end of the world, on condition that he is happy, satisfied with himself, attributing his virtues to himself, and blaming others for his mistakes and misfortunes. Properly speaking, this kind of existence cannot be considered as human. It could be described as anthropoid. This term is justified in the sense that exterior man, immersed in self-satisfaction, represents the crowning achievement of millions of years of evolution of the species from its animal ancestors. Yet, from the point of view of esoteric evolution, he is a possibility which has not yet been realized. If we envisage the problem of esoteric evolution from the point of view of the film and the different parts man can play in it, it is clear that this kind of evolution is impossible as long as a film can always be considered as turning in the same circle. People who perform, such as actors, in such a film are those we have called anthropoids, puppets, the dead who, in the words of Jesus, believe themselves to be alive. Esoteric evolution starts when man, by his conscious efforts, proves capable of breaking the circle and transforming it into an ascending spiral. The spiral represents an intermediate state between the position where the human personality is found to be trapped in the film, which revolves mechanically in a way hardly separated from the eternal plane, and that of the perfect, free individuality who is able, if need arises, to reincarnate consciously in time. This reminds me of why we repeat the past. We repeat the past continually because we're stuck in that circle. We're not evolving in a spiral, we're going in circles. We're doing the same things again and again and again, until which time we decide that we want to actually start making a conscious change. And we go within and we start changing who we are in order to attain selfhood, which is individuality. Now we're going to look at simulation theory and simulation reality from ancient Hermeticism and fractals. As above, so below. As below, so above. The second Hermetic principle of correspondence. That which is above is like to that which is below. That which is below is like to that which is above. The macrocosm, the very large, the totality, and the microcosm, the very small, the individual units which comprise the whole, are reflections of each other. The universe is holographic. It is self-similar across all scales. This is how we are all one. We are not a singular one. We are one through correspondence. We connect to each other. We connect to the various realms. We connect to the various aspects of ourself through the microcosm, the macrocosm, the internal, the external, above and below, and all the other different realms through these reflections. This is being able to understand this is how we are all one. So let's look at a fractal pattern, how it might look. Nassim Harriman brought up this example of a circle with circles within it with a Star of David inside. If you notice, there's a big Star of David in the center with a circle around it, and then each point also has a Star of David. And this can continue on indefinitely. So you can see it. It can scale inwards and it can scale outwards. Here's another pattern that self-repeats. It can go indefinitely inwards and outwards. This is an example of how fractal realities work. So contrary to popular opinion, at least according to some Christian interpretations, as above, so below is not some witchcraft and Satanistic thing. It is actually a Hermetic thing. Satanists use it, witches use it, Hermeticists use it, and even Christians use it. Why? Well, when Jesus said, "May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven," he was talking about the law of correspondence. He was talking about fractals and the holographic reality that we live in. So how does this relate to the Mandela Effect? If we live in a simulation, is it possible that what we experience and know as the Mandela Effect could be the result of variables being fine-tuned from outside of our nested reality? So there is people changing the reality around us, literally like they would be at a computer console or whatever is out there that relates to a computer console. Because if computers are here, computers are there. If AI is here, AI is there. If gender is here, gender is there. All these different things happen. because we are in a reflection. So in that other reality, they would have something comparable to a computer. And this computer in the server that they are using, which is comparable because it is corresponding, they could make changes to variables, and that would change around us. One variable change could change our external reality retroactively for everyone inside of the simulation, correct? How might this affect the results that we observe through the scientific method? If external reality is a simulation, should we trust our internal consciousness, reason, judgment, and self the most, or the external world around us the most? The external world is subject to change in such a way as reality is able to change around us, and if we are not able to see outside the veil, then we will believe that that's always been that way, or that's how it is. Not realizing that there is cause and effect, and that something else is causing that. Something at the level of causality is making these changes. If we ourselves have this internal locus of control, we can stand within who we are, and no matter what is changed around us, either through lies and deceptions and power and money, or things that are changed in our reality via a computer terminal outside of us, we ourselves stay the same. We are able to trust our internal instincts. We're able to trust our internal reason judgments and who we are more than what goes around us. So the implications of this: first of all, intelligent design. The programmer, creator of the simulation, would be like God compared to us while we are incarnated in the material domain. Now, I'm not saying that we need to worship this programmer. That's kind of silly. But the programmer is somebody actually writing the code and making the constructs for our bodies, for our reality around us, etc. Second, conflict. The two differing evolutionary processes would become competitive if the internal locus of control were to externalize some. Without the higher or internal vision to lead them, the NPCs might seek immortality upon the backs of the internal locus of control beings to use them like batteries. When the internal locus of control beings re-internalize, they will be able to inspire and work harmoniously with all life, NPCs included. So what I'm saying is that there's these two classes of beings, and they might not get along, but if those of us who have an internal locus of control, if we were to really take responsibility for thoughts, feelings, and actions, really own who we are and go within fully, not just have a little bit internal, but fully internal, then we could set an example for everybody around us, and that it would have a cascading effect that would even affect the NPCs and help them also to evolve. But because we are not taking responsibility, the NPCs are now running the show. NPCs and other people like them that want to align with them because they are enjoying this whole outside-in, externalized, external locus of control game. And now they are seeking to enslave the internal locus of control people because our consciousness becomes something that they can feed upon. Because we have this source consciousness, we're able to self-generate, and they are not able to self-generate. And so we have to re-internalize so that they can no longer feed upon us, and then also so that we can inspire the world around us. So what do you think? Do you feel that we live in a procedurally based holographic fractal universe and in a massive simulation? Why or why not? Do you think we all have souls? Or are we just unknowing NPCs? Are there two or more versions of humans journeying on varying evolutionary processes? Those with eternal souls and those with mortal souls? What about other possible dispositions? What possible conflicts could you see arising between the varying types of consciousness incarnating into our realm? If you like this video, please click like. If you're not already a subscriber and would like to stay up to date with my newest videos, please subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section below. I'm Nathan Martin with the Divine Pollination Hive and the UnityProcess.com. Be safe, be sovereign, be well.